Hello to everyone. Welcome to the program Spiritism Inspiring Lives. Today, as we carry on our studies, our reflections, as learners of the universal laws that guide us all, that we all are, we have the pleasure to have with us Andrea Barber. But for us, before we pass on to Andrea, I would invite all of us few moments of internalization that we can help to harmonize ourselves. For those who wish to close your eyes, you may do so. And observing as we breathe in, breathe out, so that we can relax our minds, our hearts, bringing the focus of our attention in the present. As beings essentially of love and goodness that we all are, learners of ourselves, spirits as we are. We start in these moments of reflection, expressing our gratitude for everything that we already received, or reincarnation, or existence, or experiences. Gratitude. And starting also to wish peace to everyone who is with us. And in that moment of harmonization, inner peace, united through the communication of love, of brotherhood, we start today's study. And as I mentioned, welcome once more, everyone, for those who may be with us now, and also those who may join later on, as we carry on our studies, our reflections within the viewpoint of Spiritism. Today we have the pleasure to have the member of the Spiritist Psychological Society, Andrea Barbe, who will be addressing the theme for us, the practice of charity and well-being. So I hand it over to you, Andrea.
Thank you, Vanisi. Hi, everyone. Today we'll be reflecting on the without charity there is no salvation through the lens of Spiritism teachings in the chapter 15 from the book The Gospel According to Spiritism by Allan Kardec. But before, let's have a little introduction about Allan Kardec, Spiritism, and spirits. Hippolyte Léon Dinazard Rivaillot, known as Allan Kardec, was the founder of Spiritism. He was born in 1804 in Lyon, France, and he passed away on 1869, Paris. Allan Kardec organized and compiled methodically the teachings he received from various spirits through mediums, and he emphasized rationality, morality, and scientific investigation of spiritual phenomena. The main books by Allan Kardec are The Spirit's Book, 1857, covers the nature of spirits, the afterlife, the ethical moral laws, and reincarnation. The Medium's Book, 1861, a guide for mediums and those studying spirit communication. The Gospel According to Spiritism, 1864, interprets the moral teachings of Jesus' taught through the lenses of Spiritism. Heaven and Hell, 1865, discusses the fate of souls after death, based on spirit testimonies. And the Genesis, Miracles and Predictions According to Spiritism, 1868, offers a spiritist interpretation of creation, miracles, and prophecy. Spiritism is science, philosophy, and religions. On the book What is Spiritism by Allan Kardec, I quote, "is the science that deals with the nature, origin, and destiny of spirits and their relationship with the corporeal world. Is a science because it studies observable phenomena related to spirit manifestations and communication. Is a philosophy because it explores ethical teachings and the purpose of life. And is a religion because it's based on Jesus' teachings and on a speech at the Parisian Society of Spiritist Studies in 1868, I quote, as a religion, It is the religion of the heart. There is a note here on the book Education According to Spiritism by Dora Incontri. Pestalozzi says, and I quote, "Pedagogical love is that which manages to awaken in others, be it a child, a student, a spouse, a friend, a sibling, or humanity, the desire for good, the longing for light, the irresistible will to grow, the feeling of God, and the certainty of the path to follow." These definitions set Spiritism apart from mere belief of system or religions. Allan Kardec emphasized its empirical and rational foundation. Spiritism helps us to change our lenses, giving us new perspectives, teaching us to see life's events differently, helping us to give new meaning to what we go through, so we can rewrite our day with clarity and tranquility, feeling lighter. So, talking about spirits, we are immortal spirits. We live forever as spirits, always learning and growing. We are thinking beings with consciousness. As conscious beings, we have the power to reshape, to re-educate ourselves towards the new and the good, beginning with our thoughts and going into actions that over time bring us a sense of lightness and happiness as we fulfill our duties. So, to live on earth, the spirit uses a physical body. But between the spirit and the body, there is a spiritual body called perispirit. So we are made of three parts: spirit, individual essence, immortal self. Perispirit, it's semi-material, is our spiritual body that connects the spirit to the to the physical body. And physical body, it's material. It's our body you use while living on earth. So when we die, the physical body stays behind, but us, spirit, and our perispirit continue living in the spiritual world. Also, just one reflection about the reincarnation. Reincarnation, according to Spiritism, is the process which a soul is reborn into new physical body to learn, to evolve, and make up for past mistakes, progressing ethically, morally through many existences, reminding all of us that we have one life and many various existences. So going back now to our lecture today, without charity there is no salvation. What is needed in order to be saved? Parable of the Good Samaritan. All Jesus' teachings can be summed up in one law, the law of love. In Spiritism by Allan Kardec, from the Gospel according to Spiritism, without charity there is no salvation. Without outside what? Outside education, outside practical love, outside of benevolent action, we do not evolve. Education goes here far beyond intellectual development. It's a moral and spiritual evolution of the soul, us, immortal spirits, within the ethicals and morals that Jesus taught us. So how can you do that? Transcend our own limitations, transforming our inner selves by replacing selfishness with charity, pride with humility, and intolerance with understanding. So these spirit's principles help us to develop our discernment. Discernment, learning to distinguish good from evil, aligning our actions with divine laws inside each one of us. Each reincarnation becomes a spiritual classroom for all of us, offering opportunities to practice our inner virtues, such as patience, forgiveness, humility, compassion, mercy, and all other forms of goodness. Another situation: renounce our personal interests by consciously today choosing to evolve beyond selfishness and pride. Also, we can go through prayers. Prayers also helps us. The benefactors always remind us how powerful our prayers are. When we pray from our heart, with sincere with our thoughts, sincere with our feelings, so the benefactors, they can feel, they can see our intentions. So when you pray from the deep of our heart, not necessary words, nothing like that, something simple and sincere, we are definitely heard. So also in the reflections, we educate our hearts to live according to the love that Jesus exemplified. Love one another as I have loved you. We are all good beings and you all can change. And by changing for the better, you also attract benevolent spirits by our side, inspiring us, helping us to go through our experiences more confident and stronger. But if you choose to remain inactive, we can attract spirits of the same category. So it's always our responsibility. Take this responsibility as a positive side. But it's also important to remember that good spirits or bad spirits, they're all our brothers and sisters in humanity. So Apostle Paul in Corinthians 1:10-23 says, all things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. So Paul teaches us that freedom without discernment can be harmful. Not everything that is permissible is beneficial and or edifying, and that we should always consider what is useful and promoting us for goodness, loving before acting, with self-control, responsibility. Everything is allowed, but not everything is good. Why? Because we are progressing, so it's necessary to choose. Having free will, let's look at some examples of actions that are permitted to us in the direction in the what is beneficial and promotes good. Otherwise, if we act against the universal laws or laws of God or laws of love, which are the same, the result will be unhappiness. So, for example, post on a social media. We can post on a social media anything you want, but if you hurt someone, definitely it's not good. We are allowed as well to eat everything you want, but if you overdo it, it's not good. We can make lots of jokes, for example, but if you offend someone, it's not good. We are free to spend money. We earn money, we can spend money. But if it harms us or others, inconsequently, it's not good. And speak the truth. Some people say, oh, I always speak the truth, which I would add actually because you're very rude. Why? Because if it hurts unnecessarily, it's really not good. So charity isn't just giving money or material help. Charity is love in motion. Charity is how you live that love in action. When you practice true charity, kindness, compassion, being patient, more understanding, more forgiving, treating others with gentleness and respect, no matter who they are, we are fulfilling every one of God's laws and developing self-love. That's why the Spiritists always tell us, the superior spirits tells us, without charity, there is no salvation. If we refuse to love, to forgive, to help others, we distance ourselves from God, rejecting the sense of divine love. That's why it's so important to consciously, lucid, participate in our inner change. So salvation should not be understood as an external reward, but as a spiritual progress of the soul. In other words, it's not a matter of belonging to a religion, but of living love in action, what Spiritism calls charity. All of Jesus' morality is summed up in charity and humility. So salvation is our moral evolution, is an inner liberation from our egoic patterns, now freely choosing to commit ourselves to the greater good, resulting in a state of inner peace and harmony that only arises from true love. We are invited here to think for ourselves and to think as immortal spirits. So, how can you think for ourselves? Let's say, for example, through our studies, here in our case, Spiritism brought from the superior spirits helps us to open our mind and self-study. Self-study how? Getting to know what we think, what we feel, what can trigger our inner points. So recognizing them, we can make different choices. Very important to self-study. So by understand how we are, what we can change in ourselves, we can actually make the movements to overcome our limitations. Without knowing them, we are stuck. And how to think as immortal spirit. So we always have opportunities to make things right and to renew ourselves. So when they say necessary to be saved, the Good Samaritan, saving here requires selfless love, as shown by the Good Samaritan. So once you melt our heart, metaphorically talking about, means when you practice altruism, our heart melts, opening space for deeper, more connected feelings, both towards ourselves and the others, in order to develop compassion, self-love, and empathy. So the slide number 1, I will skip, and we'll go the next one. Next. Yes. So we can, yes, please. Thank you. So that one, I will reflect on this slide number 1, but please, if you want to read about it, just go back and read them. I'm not going to read, but I will reflect on that slide. Metaphorically here, the right and the left that is mentioned on that slide number 1 would be a natural process based on each person's different choices, resulting in the law of affinity. So the right means when we are already making movements to the goodness, and the left means when we still indulge in the inner evil in ourselves, which is a transitory state. So that's a transitory state. So come and you bless my Father. That's also mentioned in that slide. Come here, it means when Jesus says come, it means take responsibility, referring to the autonomy of our choices and the fulfillment of our duties, written in each person's conscience. Persistence in God. Persistence in good. For example, metaphorically choosing between the wide gate and the narrow gate. Also mentioned in the Gospel according to Spiritism. So the wide gate is continuing with old, more difficult habits like laziness, gossiping, slandering. And the narrow gate means our efforts to change, means change our inner values and forming better habits. So the will to do good, leaving our comfort zone, which requires a lot of discipline, but the more we do it, easier it will become. Also, we can develop altruism, investing in ourselves, serving ourselves and the others. Serving ourselves here, it means we, through our Spiritist studies, get to know ourselves, and then, aware of the changes we need, we practice them, moving towards our renewal, feeling more peaceful, harmonized, centered, choosing to expand these resources within. And the others, the more we serve the others, the better we feel. For example, the evolved spirits, the superior spirits, they find their joy and happiness in serving. So loving God is the respect for our brothers and sisters in humanity. In that way, we are respecting and loving ourselves. This is self-love, which is the expansion of God within us. So the item 2, I will also leave here registered. So if you want to read, please go back. I will comment on that as well. So you can pass, please. One more. One more. Yes. Okay. So on the slide 2, written in the law. So in Spiritism, this expression, written in the law, refers to the ethical, moral, and divine laws that govern the universe and human life, such as loving one's neighbor, practicing charity, respecting life. These laws are considered immutable, universal, because derived from God. It's not merely the law written by humans and not invented by religions or human legislation, but the law of God, which is moral and spiritual for all of us, incarnate and disincarnate, in any era of humanity. It's also an invitation to cultivate our emotional intelligence, expressing it through acts of kindness and goodness. This means acting with respect, nurturing a genuine desire to do good, and embracing the awareness that we are all brothers and sisters in our shared humanity. It calls us to honor and appreciate our differences, recognizing that diversity helps us learn from each other and bring us closer in understanding and compassion. With this diversity, regardless of religion's belief, skin color, political views, different opinions, or sexual orientation, we are all called to rise above arrogance, pride, and selfishness, which blinds us. As stated in the Spirit's book, question 785, these are obstacles to our moral progress and to the harmony that unites humanity. When Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan, he wanted to show that true love for our neighbor is not measured by beliefs, appearance, or social status. The Samaritan did not ask who the wounded man once was. He simply helped him. The Samaritan did not simply feel compassion. He took action. In the same way, we are invited to live charity every day, wherever you are and with anyone. Our closest neighbor here is the one beside us, a family member who needs our patience, someone we work with, who needs understanding, a stranger who needs a smile, for example, or a kind word expressed through simple and sincere gestures. So, for example, sometimes it would be better to keep quiet than say something rude to avoid problems. Our words are very powerful. So there is a note here. I would like to give an example about this. Pope Innocent III, on the book Francis of Assisi, the Pope promoted the Crusades and was already on 8th Crusade, sending children, women, and elderly to war. He calls Francis de Assisi to pray for him. He was in bed, he was very ill. And that day, he called Francis Francis of Assisi to come to pray for him. When Francis of Assisi arrives, he begins by saying that he was a great leader of the church, but we couldn't dismiss the mistakes he made in promoting the war called holy, and even send the children, elderly to war, and ... So while he was speaking to him, Jesus appears and says, Francis, he's only asked you for a prayer. This is no need to reinforce the mistakes he's already made because he knows them. Spiritism brings us every day the opportunity to change our spiritual attitude, working on humility and honesty within ourselves. So the way we speak to the others, the way we act towards the others, because words are a powerful force that they can either destroy or build, depend on the feelings we nurture. We know our own difficulties. So when we go to someone, we are seeking comfort and welcome, not judgment. The same happened to the other. When someone is coming to us seeking for comfort, let's first of all listen to them. First, everything, listen to them. Stop and listen. And then be able to offer a word of hope, trust, understanding. So let's see a second example. One friend of mine, she's a volunteer in a hospital. So she was already very tired, physically tired. And she noticed a lady who needed help. And even though she was tired physically, she offered her help, which was a blessing to that lady. That lady was coming walking very slowly. And this friend, my friend, she was about to sit down a little bit. But when she saw this lady coming walking very slowly, she just thought, no, I can't. I need to see what's happening there. So by the time she got there, the lady asked her for a wheelchair. So my friend happily got her a wheelchair and took her wherever she needs to go. So later on, my friend found out this lady had an operation on her legs. So that way we can think sometimes if you leave our place, we can help the others. We can help others. And sometimes when you look back, people are can be more needed than us. So an act of fraternity towards others and overcoming herself. That's a big lesson for us. When you act with kindness, even in small things, and considering doing the others what you'd like to be done for us, we become instruments of God and take one more step toward our own transformation, which is the real purpose of being here on the planet Earth. The third one I would like to read because is a bit different. Let's see. The number 3. Yeah. All of Jesus' morals are summed up in charity and humility, the two virtues contrary to selfishness and pride. In all his teachings, he points to these two virtues as being the way to eternal happiness. Blessed are the poor in spirit, he said, meaning the humble, for theirs in the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the pure in heart. Blessed are the meek and the pacemakers. Blessed are the merciful. Love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others what you want them to do unto you. Love your enemies. Forgive offenses. If you yourself want to be forgiven, practice the good without ostentation. I lost myself. Oh, yeah. Judge yourselves before you judge others. Humility and charity are the things Jesus never ceased to recommend, and of which he himself gave the example. Pride and selfishness are the things he never ceased to combat. But he did more than recommend charity. He put it in clear and explicit terms as an absolute condition of future happiness. In the picture that Jesus portrays of the final judgment, it is necessary, as in many other cases, to separate symbol from allegory. To people such as the ones to whom he spoke, who were still incapable of understanding purely spiritual matters, he had to present physical imagery that was striking, capable of impressing them. To be better accepted, he could not depart very far from the form of the current established ideas, always reserving for the future the true interpretation of his words and the points that he could not explain clearly at the time. However, alongside the supplementary and figurative part of the picture, one idea predominates: the happiness waiting the righteous and the unhappiness reserved for the wicked. In the final judgment, what will be taken into consideration is passing sentence. Upon what will the indictment be based? Will the judge ask if one has fulfilled this or that formality, or observed such and such outward practice? No. He will ask about one thing only: the practice of charity. And in passing sentence, he will say, "You who assisted your brothers and sisters, go on to the right. You who were harsh towards them, go on to the left." Will he inquire as to the orthodoxy of their faith? Will he make a distinction between those who believe in one manner and those who believe in another? No, for Jesus places the Samaritan, regarded as a heretic, but who showed love toward his neighbor, above the orthodox person who lacks charity. Jesus thus did not make charity only one of the conditions for salvation, but the sole condition. If there were other conditions to fulfill, he would have mentioned them. If he places charity on the first plane of virtues, it's because charity implicitly entails all the others: humility, kindness, benevolence, indulgence, justice, etc. And because it's complete negation of pride and selfishness. So this item 3, yes, this item 3, okay, we're going to reflect on. So in Spiritism, the entire moral teachings of Jesus is summed up in charity and humility. These virtues oppose selfishness and pride. Well, that's better. Practicing these virtues leads us to true happiness and spiritual growth, emphasizing a pure heart, gentleness, and mercy. Let's break it down. Pure heart. Pure heart, everything since it starts on our thoughts. So being aware of our limitations, we choose to focus on our goals, starting bit by bit. Starting, for example, 1 hour and trying to extend a bit longer for more hours, more days, until you get to the point that these actions become new good habits. So being honest and sincere, even when no one is watching. This can be challenging for some of us. But as long as no one watching, doesn't matter people watching or not, let's be honest and sincere to ourselves. We feel the goodness straight away. Try to forgive. We forgive to heal our own hatred. Forgiving is in the sense, is not about justifying what the other person did or absolving them of responsibility. It's about freeing ourselves from the weight of resentment, hurt, and hatred. Feelings that poison the one who holds them far more than the one who caused the offense. Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, he says, hatred is a destructive feeling. So learning to forgive, why? Because you are learning to love ourselves. And let's talk a little bit about gentleness. When we are kind to anyone, we are doing first of all to ourselves. That's why we feel so good in doing goodness. It's challenging sometimes when someone is rude for us to speak kindly or handle disagreements with patience and understanding. But this is our goal, and is to overcome our intolerance and to be gentle on our thoughts, on our actions, and our feelings. In discussing, reflecting on mercy, mercy showing compassion for those who have made mistakes, because we make mistakes too. It's helpful to think about how we would like to be treated if we were the one who made that particular mistake. On the book Green Light by Spirit Andrea Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier, I quote, "Think of others not in terms of angelic perfection or wickedness, but as human beings with needs and dreams, problems and struggles similar to your own." I think if all of us think in this way, the humanity will be totally different. When we are all self aware and lucid in our experiences, and we move towards the good within ourselves, going to actions, we feel an inner feedback, peace of mind, lightness, and joy, alignment with our deepest truth and highest values. Jesus used material images and symbols, such as the final judgment, to teach spiritual truth to us who are not yet ready to understand them more deeply. Although the form is symbolic, the central message is clear. The good will be rewarded with happiness, and those who act wrongly will experience suffering. It's important to understand what this idea means in Spiritism. Happiness or suffering doesn't come from a reward or punishment given by God. God loves us. It doesn't exist punishment. So, but as the natural consequences of our own actions, our own thoughts, and our own choices, reminds me another God's laws, the law of cause and effect, which is also God's of love, law of love, that makes each one of us experience the consequences of our actions, reeducating ourselves until we learn to live in harmony with goodness, with the divine laws within us. So here also I thinking about heaven and hell. Heaven and hell are not a physical place, but is a state of consciousness. For example, good people who live with love, charity, moral awareness, experience inner peace, spiritual growth, and progress and happiness in this existence and in future ones. This is heaven. We can say heaven. We are living in heaven. So, bad people who act with selfishness, pride, injustice, creating suffering for ourselves and the others, this is hell, and suffer because they face the results of their attitudes. Later on, going to through remorse, they're going to through remorse, challenges for reparation, or difficulties in future existence to re-educate themselves. So we have choices and are no longer. Let's not be unconscious to our own automatic bad habits. We were created by God simple and ignorant, but we all carry within us the seed of purity. So let's choose good habits. In that final judgment, the basis of the sentence is the practice of charity. Jesus does not ask whether we follow the laws, rituals, or specific beliefs. He only asks whether we were charitable and helped others and ourselves. It's very important for us to remember that neither God nor Jesus will question or judge us, because firstly, God loves us, and secondly, as God's laws are inserted in our conscience, we will be the ones who question ourselves. Those who practice charity stand on the right, and those who are selfish and unkind stand on the left. According to Jesus, charity is the only condition for salvation, is because it includes all other virtues: humility, kindness, and justice. Justice here is again within the law of cause and effect, which means the laws of love, and is the opposite of pride and selfishness. For example, we have a colleague, Dr. Emerson Pedersoli, who is a well-known Brazilian spirit speaker and clinical psychologist, known for lectures on mental health, family, overcoming challenges, and spiritual growth, combining psychology with spirit's principles of practical guidance. Once Dr. Emerson Pedesoli was driving on his way to a spiritual lecture. During his journey, he had a car accident. The car lost control, crashed, ended up crossing into the opposite lane. Fortunately, he was not injured, but he found himself in a difficult situation, unsure of what to do at the moment. Shortly after, a passing driver stopped and went over to help him. This man didn't ask who Dr. Emerson was, where he came from, where he was going to. He simply bent down and began helping him to get his car back to order. In order. So surprised and grateful, Dr. Emerson asked why he had stopped to help a complete stranger. The man replied something that left a deep impression. Every morning, I ask God to show me an opportunity to be useful, to do good, no matter who it is for. This experience touched Dr. Emerson deeply because he realized that while he was on his way to speak about goodness and charity, God allowed him to experience a practical lesson in it. The simple act of that man demonstrated the true meaning of selfless charity, love in action, without judgment or distinction. It's a beautiful reminder of how spirituality can manifest in everyday life when we open our hearts to serve others. So let's now read the item. Let's see the item 5, please. Charity and humility, that is the sole path to salvation. Selfishness and pride, that is the path to perdition. This principle is formulated in precise terms in the words, you shall love God with all your soul and your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets are contained in these two commandments, and so that there may be no mistake about the interpretation of loving God and one's neighbor, Jesus adds. And this is the second commandment, which is similar to the first. That is, one can't truly love God without loving one's neighbor, nor can one love one's neighbor without loving God. Thus, everything that is done against one's neighbor is also done against God. And since one can't love God without practicing charity toward one's neighbor, all of humankind's duties are summed up in the maxim, without charity there is no salvation. So here I would like to give a brief reflection that these items 4 and 5 talk about the greatest commandment, love God and love your neighbor. Love God, how come? Respecting life, finding good solutions in difficult times, recognizing something greater that guides us to do what is right. Love our neighbor, living with ethical awareness and kindness, practicing empathy, solidarity, caring for ourselves, for the others, and the world around us. And also, it's important to remember that in contact with others, we see our own limitations and what we can improve in ourselves. And as we choose to improve ourselves, the limitations of others no longer affect us. The more you practice our virtues, overcoming our limitations, the less the exterior will affect us. This is a blessing us to know. For example, Chico Xavier's mother in spirit taught him and us how to use the remedy of anger. When someone provokes us, take a glass of water, take a sip, and hold the water in our mouth. Don't throw it away, don't swallow it. While the urge to respond lasts, let our tongue rest in the water. This is the true water of peace. I love this message. So let's go now to the item 6 and 7. I will just read the 7, please. Yeah, thank you. St. Paul understood this great truth so profoundly that he said, even if I were to speak the language of the angels themselves, if I were to have the gift of prophecy and grasped all mysteries, if I had all the faith possible to the point of moving mountains, but did not have charity, I would be nothing. Among these virtues, faith, hope, and charity, the most excellent is charity. Hence, without any doubt, he places charity above faith in itself, because charity is within everyone's reach, the ignorant and the learned, the rich and the poor, and because it's independent of any particular belief system. He does even more. He defines true charity. He shows that it's not only displayed in beneficence, but in the gathering of all the qualities of the heart, in goodness and benevolence towards one's neighbor. So here, Paul, in this letter to the Corinthians, shows us that charity is love in its purest and most active form. He teaches that it is useless to have faith, knowledge, or even perform good deeds if they are not guided by true, selfless love for ourselves and others. The charity that Paul describes is not just about giving things, but about giving oneself with respect, with patience, understanding, and kindness. When we learn to act with this kind of love in our daily lives, at home, at work, on the streets, we are living the true meaning of outside charity. There is no salvation. There is one philosopher, his name is John Richardson. He says, and I quote, there are three types of people: the one who waits for things to happen, the one who makes things happen, and the one who asks, what happened? So let's be the one who makes things happen. Let's, using our intelligence given from God and the tools that He gave for us, such as the time that we have available for us to use wisely, the reincarnation that is given to us, to make the most of it. Spiritism reminds us that it's not enough to simply avoid doing evil. It's necessary to do good consciously and constantly, bringing comfort, understanding, and respect to the people around us. Because everything you do for others, we do for ourselves first. That's why outside of charity, there is no salvation. It's not a phrase of exclusion, but of inclusion, because we can all practice charity, serving in various situations through simple gestures of love on our daily life. For example, when you go out and if you see someone, it's okay to say good morning. There is no problem to say a good morning, to look at the person with a smile on our face, meaning the good morning. So being kind by opening a door, for example, waiting for someone to come behind us. At home, for example, if you notice that our wife or our husband arrives tired, we offer them a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, something to help them to relax, to rewind, leaving that place of priority where sometimes can be just all about us. Let's pay attention to our surroundings. Another tool from God to help us. Let's embrace the family that we have to improve ourselves, the social connections that mirror ourselves to become aware of ourselves. But sometimes we can ask, how can I do good with love if I don't feel it yet? In Spiritism, we learn that the feeling does not always come before the action. Sometimes it is the habit of doing good that helps love grow within us. Doing good is a training for all of us. Even if you don't yet feel love, acting with goodwill is already a step toward it. The heart learns over time what the hands do with sincerity. So therefore, feeling is born from practice. And love is built through practice. When we help others, even without strong emotion, we create space within ourselves for love, inner us to grow. Every act of patience, every effort to understand another is like a drop of water that slowly forms a stream of a genuine love. So God values intentions, not perfection. God does not demand perfection, but our sincere effort to achieve the goodness. So on the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec, the question 785 mentions that even obstacles are part of learning. God values our moral progress, which requires continuous effort to overcome our imperfections. And on the question 909, the spirits say that personal effort is what God expects from us, not instant perfection. They emphasize as well that with goodwill and perseverance, we can gradually overcome our imperfections. What matters is acting with the desire to do what is right, always placing ourselves as life's learners. You are always learning. We are life's learners, even if the feeling is still small. Over time, the good we do out of duty transforms into good done out of love. Therefore, doing good with love is a journey, not a starting point. Even if you don't feel it yet, but strive to act correctly, we are already walking with Jesus. Love will come as a natural fruit of the sincere effort. This is self-love. So, let me see if I have... Okay, let's read now the item 8. Without the church, there is no salvation. Without the truth, there is no salvation. While the maxim, without charity, there is no salvation, is based on a universal principle and gives all God's children access to supreme happiness, the dogma, without the church, there is no salvation, is based not upon a fundamental faith in God and the mortality of the soul, a faith common to all religions, but upon the special faith in particular dogma. It's exclusive and absolute. Instead of uniting God's children, it divides them. Instead of stirring them to love their brothers and sisters, it maintains and sanctions the strife among the sectarians of various denominations, which mutually regard one another as damned for all eternity, even though they might be relatives and friends in this world. By misunderstanding the great law of equality before the grave, it separates people from one another, even in the realm of repose. The maximum, without charity there is no salvation, is consecrated to the principle of equality before God and freedom of conscience. With this maximum as a rule, all men and women are brothers and sisters, and whatever might be the way in which they worship the Creator, they hold out their hands to one another and pray for one another. With the dogma, without the church there is no salvation. They anathematized one another, persecute one another, and live as enemies. The Father does not pray for the Son for the Father, or the friend for a friend, if they believe each other to be condemned forever. Therefore, this dogma is essentially contrary to the teachings of Christ and the law of the gospel. So briefly, outside the church, there is no salvation, can be redefined in the light of Spiritism as there is no salvation outside of collective work and ethical moral discipline, rather than a physical temple. Outside the truth, there is no salvation. It means, essentially, there is no progress without knowledge and discernment. Evolution requires awareness and understanding of the spiritual reality. And spiritual reality is what we can't see, but we feel. Our thoughts, our emotions, our attitudes, and our relationships have effects that go beyond the physical body. Cultivating kindness, truth, and charity is caring for us, all of us immortal spirits. So let's now proceed to the item 9, please. Without the truth, there is no salvation, would be the equivalent of without the church, there is no salvation, and would be equally exclusive because there is no one single denomination that does not claim to be privileged with the truth. What person could boast of possession the whole truth when the circle of knowledge is increasing constantly and ideas are being rectified each and every day? The absolute truth is shared only among spirits of the highest order, and earthly humankind could not pretend to belong to the order because it has not been given to it to know everything. Humans can aspire only to a relative truth proportional to their advancement. If God had made possessing the whole truth as an express condition for future happiness, this would be a sentence of general prescription. Whereas all might practice charity, even in its broadest definition. In accordance with the gospel, Spiritism says that one can be saved whatever one's beliefs might be, provided one observes God's laws. It does not state, without Spiritism there is no salvation. And since it does not claim as yet to teach the whole truth, neither does it state, without the truth there is no salvation, a maxim that would divide instead of unite and would perpetuate antagonism. So again, briefly, I just would like to add, outside of truth, there is no salvation. No one knows absolute the truth. Each person can only reach relative truth and practice charity. Therefore, may we all invest in our spiritual progress to feel happier and more fulfilled. Spiritism teaches that salvation depends on the practice of goodness and ethical moral effort, not on belief, uniting humanity rather than dividing it. And lastly, the item 10, the Spirit's teachings. Without charity, there is no salvation. My children, the destinies of man and woman on earth and in heaven are contained in the maxim, without charity, there is no salvation. On earth, because in the shadow of this banner, they will live in peace. In heaven, because those who have practiced it will find grace before the Lord. This motto is the heavenly light, the luminous pillar that guides them through the desert of life in order to lead them to the promised land. It shines in heaven like a saintly halo around the heads of the elect, and on earth it's engraved on the hearts of those to whom Jesus will say, "Go to the right, you who are blessed of my Father." You will recognize them by the fragrance of charity that they spread around them. Nothing expressed Jesus' thought better. Nothing sums up the duties of man and woman better than this maxim of divine order. Spiritism could not prove its origin in any better way than by proving it's a rule, because it's the reflection of the purest Christianity. With such a guide, people will never become lost. So, my friends, apply yourselves to grasp its profound meaning and consequences, and to discovering for yourselves all its applications. Submit all your actions to the test of charity, and your conscience will respond to you. Not only will it help you to avoid wrongdoing, but it will lead you to practice the good. For a negative virtue is not enough. It's necessary to have an active one. In order to practice the good, the action of the will is always necessary. Whereas, in order not to practice wrongdoing, idleness and negligence are often enough. My friends, give thanks to God, who has allowed you to enjoy the light of Spiritism, not because those who possess this enlightenment are the only ones who will be saved, but because in helping you to understand Christ's teachings more fully, it makes you better Christians. Therefore, make every effort so that when others observe you, they can say that the true Spiritist and the true Christian are one and the same thing. For all who practice charity are Jesus' disciples, whatever denomination they belong to. Paul Apostle, Paris, 1860. So a briefly reflection on this to finish our lecture for today. When we think on earth, the earth being a hospital or a school of God, every experience you go through, joy, pain, success, difficulties, they're all tools for us to learn and for our inner reform. So in the book, Love, Unbeatable Love, Joana de Angelis explores the concept of self-abandonment, highlighting that those who retreat into self-interest become prisoners of their own actions, wearing a happy facade while internally enduring a life of torment. So, when we acknowledge our mistakes and correct our vices, we are developing our virtues by cultivating self-love. Let's look at ourselves and the others with compassion and respect. In our case, studies of Spiritism, let's be grateful that it helps us to understand the teachings of Jesus and practice charity, make us the true Christians, making us true Christians regardless of our religions. So that's for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, Andrea, and thank you for those who have been with us as well. As we come to the end of our reflections today, I invite you all to conclude it with a prayer. Prayer means talking to God with love from our hearts, giving thanks for these moments of enlightenment, giving thanks for the presence of the enlightened beings who have been with us wherever we are and with who we are, knowing that we are always blessed with the company of our dear friends in the Spirit, who love us, who help us, who inspire us, with these reflections of today, that we may become better beings, and therefore also working towards our well-being as immortal beings. Our well-being on a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual dimension depends on exercising the practice of charity, which we all can do, which we all can learn, which we all can practice, as long as we learn about it. Positioning ourselves as learners of ourselves, as we are, in a loving way, choosing to be better today than we have been yesterday, and better tomorrow than we are today. Always with the eyes as a learner through love, even accepting our mistakes and choosing not to repeat them. Choosing to be more charitable, more forgiving, more willing to cooperate for the causes that elevate humanity, that promote the goodness within the society, within our homes, within our families. And in that way, with our hearts full of joy and gratitude, we conclude this study today. So be it. So once more, thank you very much indeed, Andrea, and also for all of those who have been with us, and hope to see you all soon in further reflections about Spiritism. Wish you much peace to all and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.